Hi, I'm McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we have some breakup stories to unpack. If you have a breakup story you want to share, go to writemac.com, send it in, and I couldn't unpack it in a live stream just like this. Just did an earlier live stream where I planned to unpack these, but we had a live caller come in. We talked for an hour. If you want to check that out, another video. Otherwise, we're going to get into it today. Like I said, probably one of the best things you can do post-breakup is write out your story. Put it into a sequence, get all the events out on paper. I guess a lot of people don't write on paper anymore, but it's really important. It's actually, it's something that helps me help you. But I would also add that a lot of times clients tell me once they write the story, they're like, oh, I should have done this a long time ago, because it puts everything in order, gets everything out there. It gives you some time to gather your thoughts. And then when you write your story out, right? You write your story out and you go, can't run away from those words. They're crystallized. So, when you're with friends and you're talking for 4 or 5 minutes and you just give them a little snippet, a little here and there, a little here and there, and you're like, oh my God. The story that you wrote, you're like, now I'm realizing, some things I didn't put together before. So it's very important. Rye Flint, I was on earlier. It's good to see you. I mentioned earlier I had dengue fever for 2 weeks, which is a serious tropics mosquito virus that you can overcome, but you actually could die from. So I've been resurrected. I feel great. It's good to hear from you. And I have some stories on deck, right? And thanks for your support. I did see in the comments that you were asking how I was doing or what I was up to, and I appreciate that, hon. So let's see here. Let's get into the first story here. So I'm going to turn down the music here. It's kind of funny. Earlier on the live stream, I had the mic out, everything like that, and the mic wasn't on. It wasn't connected. It's kind of funny. You take 3 weeks off and you forget the little things. So I'm just going to put this here. Make this smaller. Yeah. First story. I met my long distance ex online on November 30th, 2023. So I'm assuming that this might be 2022, maybe just a typo. And we broke up Tuesday last week. All right, so what we're looking at, 11, 10, maybe 5, 6, 7 months, 5, 6. All right. When we broke up, he told me he was having trouble visualizing our future now and didn't think our problems could be fixed. He also said he needed to work on himself because he was very dependent on me emotionally and felt like his world would end if we broke up. This change in behavior is very baffling. All right, so just off the top, there's a lot of things here that aren't being detailed. And so if you work with me, I'm gonna get to the bottom of it and get away from the surface and peel some layers back, because what's the problems? I think our problems, I didn't think our problems could be fixed. So number one, what are the problems would be my question specifically. What do you think the problems are, and what do you think he thinks the problems are? Right? So this would really help if you wrote that. Visualizing our future. I mean, could you see a problem with the visualization of your future? And he needed to work on himself because he was very dependent on me. Ironically, the fact that he believes he's dependent on you emotionally, but then wants to break up with you, that's just not common. Usually someone that feels emotionally attached or dependent on someone doesn't want to break up with them. So that does seem baffling or strange to be associated with. The relationship started quickly and he fell very in love just as fast. He was obsessed. That's not a good thing usually. And you were attracted to the idea that he was obsessed. One thing I'm not getting completely, when you said I met my long distance ex online, the biggest question that I would ask in this first 3 or 4 sentences, is this one of those situations where you never met in person, or you only met in person a couple times? Because what happens is someone's like, oh, we've been together 6, 7 months. We've been together a year. How many times have you met? Once? Never? It's an incomplete relationship. in my book. Now, some people might take that offensively. Okay. It's up to you. But to say that you're in a full-on relationship and you've never met in person, there's a lot of things to be learned when you meet someone in person. And there's a lot of realities that aren't being met when you don't meet in person. We talked on the phone 24 hours a day from the start of the relationship. So the idea that you're telling me that you talk 24 hours a day means that you are embellishing, making things a little bit bigger than they are, because it's virtually impossible to talk 24 hours a day. I mean, really? From the start of the relationship, and even went to sleep on FT every night. I don't know what FT means. He lives in, I don't think you want me to tell the states. And so you're in different states, but you're both on the East Coast. I was supposed to be seeing him around this time, but last month I had issues with my car, so I made plans to visit within the next couple months instead. All right, so with this, again, so you wrote this story out. You guys met online. It's long distance. I'm with you. You talk all the time. Have you met in person? So when you said that you had plans to meet, would that be the first time you were planning to meet? This is very important to the storyline. I've met his family via FT. It's some online platform. We exchanged a lot of gifts, and even had our own Netflix and Hulu accounts together. So that tells me that you guys are watching Netflix and Hulu long distance. He could send me heartfelt messages all the time, and he would tell me he would do anything to keep this relationship. Way too much neediness, obsession, talking 24 hours. This is not a healthy way to start a long distance relationship. I made a lot of mistakes, but he was very patient with me and compromised a lot. Again, you're writing out a story. You're asking me for help. You're not telling me what the mistakes were. You're not telling me what the problems are. I can't really, when you go, oh, there's a lot of problems, there's a lot of mistakes. What were they? That would help. When I get upset, I let my emotions take control and I make decisions impulsively. I proposed breaking up 2 or 3 times, even though I really didn't want to. Well, that's a big problem. Where's that coming from? Why do you think you act that way would be questions I would ask you. Being in a relationship and you identify with being impulsive and breaking up when you don't want to break up, that just tells me that you just want to win and you don't want to talk things out. Not good. Okay. The fact that you're divulging that's progress, being mindful of it. When I get upset, I proposed breaking up 2 or 3 times. I really didn't want to do it. I guess deep down, I just wanted a reaction out of him, and he would react to it by being very needy, apologetic, calling and texting me back to back, blaming himself and apologizing to mend the situation. He was very afraid of losing me. So you're admitting that you played on that whenever you didn't get what you wanted. Very unhealthy way to have a relationship. Especially long distance. So long distance, you need extra trust, extra maturity. Okay. And this is lacking from the get-go. But this last time it was different. His energy was different. So you're saying I would threaten to break up, then he would apologize and come calling and text back. It wasn't a problem until he didn't do that. Think about that, what you're saying. I don't know if he's afraid of his past relationships that he's mentioned repeating themselves. Well, no, this is not a good relationship. Your tactic that you know is not good, but it didn't work the last time. And now you're saying, oh, no, this is what happens when people use, I'm going to break up with you to win arguments or to have someone chase them. There's going to be a time, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th time that someone goes, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like this game when we break up to make up, or that you just throw this at me. And the other person goes, wait a minute. Why are you acting different? I would say you're the one lighting the wick on that. Okay? Like, this is good that you wrote this out. Was very afraid of losing me, but the last time was different. The energy was different. I don't know if he's afraid of his past relationships that he's mentioned repeating themselves, if he's just lost feelings for me, or he just wants to get back at me. So you got 3 different things that are completely different, that are very generalized. I don't think he lost feelings. I probably don't think that he wants to get back at you, but does he want to be in a relationship long distance with someone that's identified themselves as being impulsive and breaking up when they don't really want to break up, when they really deep down want a reaction out of the person? So does the problem start with you or start with him? I don't know if this is a situation where he falls out of love just as quickly as he falls in love, but we never had big fights until the last month of our relationship. Okay, so again, what were the big fights? After the breakup, it was like we switched places. I was the needy, pushy one, but he seemed detached and very certain about his decision. Yesterday, April 2nd, was my birthday, and after no contact for about 5 days, he was the first one to wish me a happy birthday. I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but I'm hoping it's a sign he still cares or he's still interested. Can this be saved? What should I do? Okay, bottom line is I would want to know, like, have you met yet, or are you just meeting online? Number two, you need to work on yourself first. So you're looking at it like, oh, how can we just get back together? What's this whole thing where I make decisions impulsively? I proposed breaking up 2 or 3 times, even though I really didn't want to. That sentence stands out to me that that's something that you're not going to be able to go, oh, if we get back together, I can change that. That's something embedded in your character. You're aware of it. You're actually not even running from it. You're like, oh, it worked. You wrote out, I guess deep down, translation, this is your feelings and this is what you know about yourself. This isn't a guess. I just wanted a reaction out of him, and he would react to it being very needy and apologetic. That's manipulation. Okay. So now it backfired. He got tired of it, and then you became needy and weak. Honestly, sounds like you're not really in a good place to have a healthy relationship, first and foremost. You probably need some sort of therapy. This may be not what you wanted to hear. If you guys get back together, which is a high probability, and I do think he still has feelings for you. I do. It's only been 5 days. He says happy birthday. You guys have made up and broke up multiple times, so this is kind of like a storyline in your relationship. But if you've broken up multiple times, it's not a healthy relationship. I would get couples counseling or counseling on your own on how you're looking at dealing with relationships. And the idea that, like, it didn't work this last time that you were impulsively breaking up with him, and that you're both needy or pushy in different situations, like the tables turned. It sounds like neither of you are in a secure place to have a relationship, let alone a long distance relationship. Does that make sense? So you need to get to the bottom of some of your individual problems before you can get into a long-term relationship. That being said, I'd have to know more about the situation. I don't think that when you say, like, can this be saved? I think you guys can get back together. It's only been 5 days, and you seem very up and down, 0 to 100, both of you. But what kind of relationship do you want to work on? It's just unhealthy all the way around, right? So what relationship are you saving? A relationship where you make up to break up, where someone's extremely needy and obsessive? Those aren't good things long term. All right, so that's the first story. So we got Rye Flynn on deck, Petty Betty, Rob. Talking about accents. Do you have a sexy Australian accent, Rye Flynn? I'm not flirting with you. I really want to know. Okay, great. You're going to talk on a call sometime? Let me know. We just had an hour one before. All right, let's get into the next story. If you have a story you want to send it in to writemac.com, and I'll review it in a video just like this. This one's a little bit longer and more detailed. Let me get into it here. Hey, Mac, thanks for all the interesting content and your work. Well, thank you for saying thank you. I've got a story and some questions to share. Nice opener. I had an incredibly close and passionate relationship with my ex over 3 years. We've got to throw it incredibly, right? Okay, I believe you. She was extremely dedicated. So we've used words incredibly and extremely. A little dramatic here. She was extremely dedicated to me during our relationship and still says that she loved me from the bottom of her heart. I believe you. And to have someone extremely dedicated to you in a relationship is a good thing in 3 years. I suspect she still does. Okay. Unfortunately, in this story, instead of having a committed relationship until we died, very dramatic narratives you're throwing in here. She was incredibly used a second time, insensitive and harsh towards me at the end. Okay, so good part about it is 2.5 years out of 3 years were pretty damn good. Good. That means you're a pretty good judgment of what a good relationship is. The first 2 years should be rose petals and wine glasses. It should be the honeymoon phase. You should be getting along really well. And a lot of times, if you're, 3, 5, 8 years, a lot of times, hey, it just started to get bad at the end. People that tell me like, oh, we had 7 years of hell. Well, who was a part of that? Why didn't you bail out? Why didn't you leave? So, insensitive and harsh to me at the end. I now know that she has abandonment and ancient attachment issues that I know how to manage. Okay, so right there, if you think you're going to manage someone else's ancient attachment issues and abandonment, I think that's a booby trap. Okay. So is she aware of the abandonment and ancient attachment issues? Is she identifying with those things? Is she seeing a therapist or working on those things? Or are you just saying, I know how to play that game so I don't get stung by it? If that's the case, it's just not a good situation to be in. And what happens is someone goes on the internet, they read about attachment theory, which theory is, just for the record, look up what theory means. Look up the history of attachment theory. Attachment theory is one of those things. It's not a fact. It's constructed by one doctor who did some research. So if you're going to hold that as like a holy grail, it's not true. It's almost like, so we have blood types, right? Those are cut and dry. It's like you're O negative, you're B this, you're that. Those are done. Those are factual pretty much the way they are. Someone with a theory means almost like an educated guess that's been created. And what happens is people go online and they read all about this stuff and they're like, oh, now I know my ex. Now I know my partner. I know exactly what to do. And it's like, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. And the idea that you've identified that about them, the ironic thing is people never divulge, they always go, well, I'm secure attachment and they're anxious attachment. It's like, well, who diagnosed too? You diagnosed yourself? So getting into this abandonment, ancient attachment, I believe you there's probably some abandonment issues. I believe you that she can be an ancient attachment according to the, generalizations under that umbrella. Fine. The idea that I know how to manage it, good luck. I mean, you might have a few situations that you can get out in front of. Those are her issues and her problems. Now, here's the crazy thing. Now, let me throw this little curveball at you. Are all anxious attachment people going to act in the same way and the same set of standards on the same scenarios and same situations? Hell no. So if you go, oh, yep, I know she's anxious attachment, so in this particular scenario, she'll act this way. I don't think so. Human beings are way more intricate than that. That's why you have weird phobias like, oh, I'm scared of clowns. Oh, I'm scared. Like, where do these things come from? So when you start to think, oh, now that I know they're anxious attachment, I can figure everything out. Not really. And you shouldn't be in a situation where you're trying to strategically act upon what you've diagnosed about someone clinically. I should have told her that I was not going to leave her, but she can treat me so badly. All right, well, obviously, if you've been together for 3 years, there was reasons that you were treated badly, and people have a expiration date on that. It's like, that's gone too far. I'm ready to leave. Okay. People get fed up. So what you're saying is, I wish I would have not left her, but I did have reasons. It's like, all right, I'm sure if you shared some of these reasons, like some of my clients, especially males that are with women that they're highly attracted to, I'm like, wow, that sounds pretty bad to me, what she said to you or what she did to me. And one client of mine had literally one of his best friends was with them at a happy hour, and she had her hand in his lap, giving him like a little rub down, like a little 50-50 while they were talking. And he was like, that was one of the things she did when she treated me. It's like, whoa, in front of you too? That's grounds to break up. I did the opposite and threatened her 10 times that I'll leave if she doesn't improve. That just escalated our fights. If you are threatening 10 times to leave, right, and you had reasons, there's probably reasons why you don't want to be in the relationship. So that you think that gun to the head negotiations, ultimatums are going to work. Ultimatums don't work, but they usually tell the truth. And they create a situation. The reason you give ultimatums is you're so tired of their behavior. In the back of your head, in the moment, you're like, you know what? I'd rather break up or you change. The problem is when it comes to behavior, situational behavior in relationships, no one will change overnight. No one. This behavior was established from her relationship with her mother. So if it was established from her mother or not, it's still there. So you crack the case, it's because of her mother, it's probably not going away. Some of these issues, maybe she needs to go to a few years of therapy. I don't know. But you're not going to figure it out and learn how to manage it. If you wanted to break up with her 10 times, at least 5 or 6 times, maybe you had valid reasons. You just don't really want to break up because you don't want to lose the trade-off. There's always a trade-off. You're in a relationship with someone that's crazy, that treats you badly. So what are you getting? Usually money, intimacy. There's all kinds of things. So there's a trade-off there that you can't let go of. It's like codependence. That's a really tough one. People that go, well, if I leave him or her and she keeps drinking, they're going to end up with a DUI or they're going to end up in the hospital. It's like, that's the trade-off. You can't deal with the fact that you don't trust them being on their own. Her background is she's Asian with a very attractive tan bikini body. She is proud of, easy to attract and rebound. All right, so right there, you're telling me without being direct that she's a 10 out of 10 in my book. She's highly attractive, and that's what your trade-off. Not uncommon for most men, because for most men, because I don't like to speak for all men, for most men, okay, think about this for a moment. Beyond being with a woman that's extremely attractive for intimate purposes or just being eye candy, it's a status symbol for guys too. So their buddies seeing them with someone like that, a lot of them won't want to admit it, but ego-wise, if they're with a hot woman, it's an extra thing, okay? She was estranged from her entire family and brought up by her overbearing, cruel, and substance-abusing mother who would threaten suicide and threw her out on the street at a young age. Red flags, I know, but we fell in love during lockdowns in Australia over COVID. All right, so you're not going to change that relationship with her mother. She can go get her own therapy about that. The fact that you're aware of that and you're saying, well, this is why we have problems. I would be curious to talk to her and ask her about some of your behavior. The only reason I'm asking this is because you're diagnosing her. So a lot of people do this. They go, oh, they're this, they're that. I've done some couples work where I've talked to the couple after they've broken up and gone back together. And I'll ask to talk to the female, because usually it's the male, privately before we do the couples therapy. Like, I'm not going to just talk to one of you solo. It's not fair. The story will be much different. I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong, but when someone starts painting this picture that you're painting, it seems like everything that's bad about this relationship is kind of her fault and her background. All right. Sure. Because she was so attached to me with no one else in the world, she became extreme. Well, that's possibly related to the COVID situation. So if you fell in love during the lockdowns and COVID, because some people, it's ironic, they actually got closer during the lockdown. And that's a unique situation that when anxious attachment issues or theories was put out, did they have something in the small type that said, whoa, in COVID situations during lockdown, anxious attachment issues, you see what I'm saying? This is a unique situation where you guys got close, right? So if you fell in love during lockdowns and then lockdowns were lifted, what changed would be my question. So there's usually an environmental change or an identity change when you have a long relationship and something changes quickly. Identity changes usually come from work, like a new career or a new job. So you're around new people, you have a new title, you have new responsibilities. It will actually change your behavior and your outlook quite quickly. If you, like I said, with lockdowns, maybe something changed there. If you move to a new city and have to meet new friends and new people, you'll change. So there was something else there associated with when lockdown ended that I would probably have to ask you in a live session, because she was so attached to me and no one else in the world. She became extreme, once self-harming when I would not see her for a few days. Okay, so if there's self-harming being done, then she needs to go see a therapist. You're not going to read about something online and then suddenly be like, oh, I know how to manage this now. Prompted by my zero tolerance to her negativity, she insulted me on a regular, trying to break my confidence in order to stay in the relationship with her. I started to tell her to get out of my apartment 6 times, and she clung on, refusing to leave, telling me to call the cops, knowing I wouldn't want them interfering. The cops were called by my neighbor, who had a good rapport with, to investigate because of the fights. The final straw that forced me to take action to leave was she said if I break up with her, she'd commit suicide. All right, well, like, that's a situation that's very unique, right? That's gun to the head negotiations. You need to get her professional help in that situation. You need to say, like, we need to seek out a therapist. You don't want to call her bluff on that. I could see that. Totally understand. I worked in a high-pressure job and devised a way to get out of my job and made sure my ex was safe to break up with. That's admirable. I told her I got fired ending 14th of October and was moving to another city to stay with my family while retraining, and that we needed to break up. In reality, I quit my job. So right there, you lied. Okay. Put my house contents in storage and went traveling to heal from this situation. Okay. So you took care of yourself. Okay, good. My ex contacted me every day, and at first I entertained her calls, but then fell in love with her again when she said she'd seen the error in her ways, and we discussed getting married. Okay. It's possible. I was actually going to go back to her. However, while traveling, I bought some non-refundable long-haul flights to visit a country I used to live in for nearly a decade, and I wanted to go and see my old friends and business partners after 5 years. All right, so right there, you made a decision on a crossroad where you guys were in a really good place. You're talking about marriage. You're talking about getting together. And you're like, you know what? Before I do that, before I commit back to you, I'm assuming that you thought you were going to have some single fun on this trip also. Just intuitively, that's what I'm thinking. If I'm going to get back with her, maybe I should have some fun single-wise before I leave. I called my ex on the 8th of December to tell her about the trip, that she should either come, okay, or that I'll be right back to be with her. She immediately said, if you go, then it's over. I need to come back for Christmas and her birthday a few days after Christmas. So right there, you know that she doesn't, right there, gun to the head negotiations. She is who you thought she was. She's showing you that she's in the same state she was before, where if she doesn't get what she wants, she's going to go extreme. So if you don't do this, I'll break up with you. I told her that a healthy relationship would wait. And I thought, well, what stands out to me is that she should either come, so that she had an option to come visit you on the trip, and she didn't take that. I told her a healthy relationship would wait, and I thought, see, here's the thing: lecturing and going, this is what a healthy. It doesn't, for someone like this that you're dealing with, you think like, oh, they're going to be like, oh yeah, he knows what a healthy she's not thinking like that. She's thinking, what do I want? I'm not getting what I want. If I don't get what I want, she doesn't negotiate. She goes straight for the kneecaps. She's done it. She goes for the most extreme way to get your attention, and you've just been reeled back in, right? And then you go to your morals. Well, this isn't right in a healthy relationship. Really? I told her that a healthy relationship will wait, and I thought about it for a few days and doubled down on the trip, not giving in to her threats. On the 20th of December, she said that I made her feel worthless. Then an airfare, it's over, and blocked me entirely. Well, there you go. Here's the thing. Sherlock, it's over. She hasn't changed. She's the same person you left before that you were scared of, basically. You had to lie and say that you were fired from your job and you're going on a trip, when really you were just trying to get out of a relationship with someone that was emotionally unstable. Okay? I thought the whole thing was ridiculous. Sent her a short message once every 2 weeks, which she read but didn't reply to. So the whole thing's ridiculous, but you're still entertaining it. Why? So this is the part of the thing when people go, oh, they have attachment issues. Oh, they have these issues with their mom. Why are you involved? If you're going to go around and go, hey, I know you need, like, what do you think you're going to do to change her? I returned home in February, went to visit her place. When I was back in town interviewing for jobs, she was happy to see me. I told her that I'd take care of her and we could see a relationship counselor. Also, that I think that would be a good thing, a couples counselor, but she definitely needs solo help. Okay. And I just, from what you're telling me, these extreme things, it ain't the work that you guys would need to do. I don't know the timetable on that. Also, that I learned a lot. I'm sorry. I told her that I'd take care of her. So was this a theme in your relationship before, that you took care of her as an adult? She doesn't work. We could see a relationship counselor. Also, that I learned a lot and was sorry. I should have told her I'd never leave her, but I had to go on this trip. So like I said, I would want to know the 10 times that you threatened to leave her. What was it over? What were the reasons? Like, you're like, oh, I should have never said that. What brought you to that? When you backtrack on these things, you start to get amnesia because you probably want good intimacy. That's my guess. You're highly attracted to her. There's something she has when you're in person that gets you. She said that it was so comfortable when we were sitting on her bed, hugging. It's too late. I'm seeing someone else. She croaked. I was confused. Well, number one, I'll give her credit for being honest. No one ever likes this. Someone seeing someone else. At least she's telling you the truth. I was confused. Bottom line is, you broke up with her. You went on a trip. You guys start this phone relationship up again. She threatens to break up with you because you're not coming home on time. Right? And now you're shocked because she's seeing someone else? Was it dating or a relationship? After a short time, I asked her dumb questions. Is he a white guy? Yes. Same as me. Is he the same age as me? No, 7 years older than me. Oh, this is bad, man. Like, why would you, what are you trying to get a profile on this guy? She's in her early 30s and we're 5 years. Do you love him? No. When did you meet? So these are the questions he asked her. Late December. You realize that you're in her frame right now. So you're asking these questions, but you're just right in her web where she's got you. Now you're going to compete. Now you're trying to compare yourself to who she's hooking up with right now. Who's got the attachment issues? This is what always gets me when people diagnose other people. Oh, abandonment issues, attachment issues. What's your issues, dude? You just went on a trip. You got out of a relationship that you were treated really bad. You thought you revived it. You come back. She goes, hey, I'm seeing someone else. And you start going, is the guy white? Is he my age? You just fall into... Is he your boyfriend was the next question. No, I don't think he thinks I'm official yet. You just fall into accepting this. She asked me where I was staying, and I truthfully replied at my dad's house. The fact that you have to say truthfully means that you do lie to her sometimes. Truthfully replied to my dad's house, which was a 3-hour drive. She said I could stay if I had an inflatable mattress. She knew I carried often in my car. I didn't have it. She said that I couldn't stay in her bed, and she didn't have a sofa in her tiny apartment. I asked if it was because she was seeing someone else, and she replied only a little, but mostly that I couldn't do whatever I wanted and expected to be okay. We had a long emotional hug. I stole a quick kiss, which lit her face up when she left. To be fair, I had slept with over 7 women casually on my travels. Exactly what I said, man. So you went on this trip, you sowed some oats. When you said earlier, like, oh, I wanted to make my trip longer and go back to the country I used to stay in, I knew right away. I was like, oh, you want to hook up with some more women before you go official with the girl. You think she didn't know that? But my mind started to deteriorate with intrusive thoughts of them together. You think she didn't plan to put that in your mind? After 3 weeks, no contact, I was job hunting and staying with family. My ex messaged me informing me that our favorite band canceled for a music festival that we bought tickets for months previously, and that I could get a refund. I asked her whether we could go together, if I could stay with her with the mattress on the floor. Oh, no. Oh, man. Book a live coaching session. I'll give you a discount, man. She said no. I sent her a message saying I was deeply hurt, that although I had no choice to leave her. She said no. Can I stay on a mattress on your floor? Think about that. This is your girlfriend of 3 years that you broke up with. And months later, after a trip where you hook up with 7 women casually, you're asking to sleep on the floor at her apartment on a mattress. Oh, come on. Seriously, this is why you write out your story. Are you serious? I could stay on the mattress on the floor. And she said no. Wow, that's a lot of power. I sent her a message saying I was deeply hurt. Well, that'll go over very attractive. That although I had no choice to leave her, she gave me hope and then blocked me and moved on fast. You hooked up with 7 casual encounters, dude, on your trip. So I don't think a lot of people reading this are feeling that sorry for you. You broke up with her, said she had abandonment issues, said she had red flags, and now you're like, look what she did to me. I said that our new relationship was not I sent her a message saying I was deeply hurt, that although I had no choice to leave her, she gave me hope and then blocked me and moved on fast. I said that her new relationship was not official. So what's the problem? The way it happened, I'm feeling replaced, that my gut was saying being in his mid-40s, he won't Okay, so now you're trying to play Nostradamus about the new boyfriend. Just stop. You have no evidence, you don't know what's going on, and you're going to be biased. The minute you start going, oh, the new guy's this, he probably won't commit, he probably won't do, it's wishful thinking. It's actually pretty pathetic. Okay? She had a right to see someone else. She's an attractive Asian tanned bikini female that's what you wrote, right? Are you surprised? Did you think she was going to wait around for you forever? And now she's got you on your back foot and you're going, oh, can I just stay on a mattress on your floor? And now my gut's saying being in his mid-40s, he won't commit or move in with her due to the possibility of him losing assets, and she doesn't have any. How do you know what his assets are or understand where she comes from or who she really is? So now you're going into, oh, he's going to be in trouble with her. She can't get a permanent visa in her current work situation, and without a commitment, she'll have to return to her home country, which is adamant she would not do. She said verbatim, I gave you hope. I don't think so. I told you a million times, if you went to the country, you would lose me, and you did. So you haven't mentioned this country you went to, but you did mention you had 7 women that you hooked up with during this time. So she must know that going to that country was going to be fun time for you on your own. This is the part you're kind of leaving out. Tell me the truth. There's no hope. I'm in a serious relationship with him now. Sorry, I told you a million times, if you went to that country, you would lose me, and you did. There's no hope, and I'm in a serious relationship with him now. I was just trying to save you some time and money with the ticket. Bye. I thanked her for helping me and asked her for a call to help me with the anxiety intrusive thoughts of them together after she declined. Who has the attachment issues? What I see in you, I see in me. This is why this is a great thing to send in anonymously, because you might think, wow, I'm being kind of hard on you. Because people do this. Oh, they have abandonment, they have attachment issues. Read the way you're reacting to this. What is your issues? After she declined, I asked for, at the very least, for a picture of him to give me closure for the black hole in my mind to move on. She said, don't be weird. I lost my temper and message. If she doesn't, then I'm going to raise a domestic abuse case against her for all this trouble. She called me immediately. Who's the crazy one? Who's the one with abandonment issues or anxious attachment issues? Seriously. After arguing about blackmail being replaced and moving on fast, the conversation calmed down. I asked her why she is seemingly in a relationship with the first guy she met. She answered that it was Christmas and her birthday period and that she was all alone in the world. It was for survival. I told people, you could put any narrative you want to these things. I told her I was so sorry how things have gone. I asked her what her new boyfriend does for a living. You're not going to like it, she said, and she paused. He's in law enforcement. I burst out laughing because she thought I'd be impressed, as I knew she liked guys with money, and I was earning 3 times what a officer would earn. The guy's hooking up with her, dude. So this idea that you earn 3 times what he earns, he's a cop, you're making all these assessments. You're the one looking over the fence like, can I get some more information? I never understand this when your ex you're not officially with, ends up with someone new that you've never met before, you don't know, and you automatically assume how much better you are than them. I make 3 times what they make. How do you know? Maybe the guy has inheritance. Maybe he has, I know people that would shock you that have regular jobs and own a bunch of houses. Also, the nature and schedule of his work is pretty bad for relationships, not to mention the domestic violence track record of cops. Oh my God. So you're just building a false case of why this guy's bad for her. Who has the issues? I asked if it was like us seeing each other 5 or 6 times a week. She said no, it was Saturday nights and some other days. She eventually said that in another universe we were together forever. I said that this was the last time we would talk and I was not going to contact her and say goodbye. The next day I screwed this up, texting that I was... Don't ever declare, oh, I'll never talk to you again. Highly immature, highly dramatic. And usually the reason why someone declares that is they're going to have trouble with it. People that are like, I'm done, like words like I'm done. Okay. Those are people that usually stick by it. I screwed this up texting. I was concerned for her that she's in a vulnerable position. You're not concerned for her that she's in a vulnerable position. You miss her. You want her back. Your ego wants her back. And you're acting like you're the savior and that you're so much better than the new guy. You broke up with her. You called her basically crazy behind the veil of attachment, anxious attachment, abandonment. You've talked about how crazy your mom was. And now all the behavior you're mentioning in this story right now, people reading it from the outside, an objective person like myself. And this is great that you're seeing this perspective. What's your attachment issue? What's your abandonment issue? Because you're lining up with that big time, man. And you're just creating a story of why you're better, which is highly biased, by the way. You never met this guy. You know what you do? If you had some dignity, you're done. She might come back to you. I mean, it sounds like you had a great 3-year relationship. The fact that she's entertaining calls between you and she's dropping breadcrumbs and making you more attached to her. And you keep going and you're like, oh, he's this? Oh God. It's like every time she gives you a little bit of, like, she's drip feeding you information about her new boyfriend and you're on bated breath over it. The next day I screwed this up texting. I was concerned for her that she is in a vulnerable position and he was just enjoying an attractive younger Asian woman. And when it came time for it, he would not commit or help her with her visa situation. So the ironic thing is, from my seat, if the guy's in his 40s and he's in law enforcement and a committed job, he would have more of an ability to get her a visa probably than most. He would also, if he's older, be more willing to commit. I don't mean this to scare you, but this story that you're coming up with, it doesn't add up. Guys in their early 40s are more likely to commit with a woman in her early 30s that's hot than someone they're both in their early 30s. She saw this and I deleted it and sent her some flowers to say sorry, that I understand why she moved on and that she could call me sometime. I've been seeing a shrink over this because from one perspective, I want to continue our deep connect. Book a live coaching session with myself. I'll help you out with this. But you're completely blind to the fact that you have some abandonment issues and attachment issues. And that she's feeding you breadcrumbs about this guy. And every time you open up the line of communication with her, you actually lose attraction. I want to continue our deep connection, but I think she emotionally abused me. I still have intrusive thoughts and miss her a lot. I'm torn whether I would want her back. All right, so this is where you're a little delirious. I'm torn if I'd want her back. She's with someone else. As if you have the option right now. I mean, this is great that you wrote this out. You're the one that's like, well, I'm not sure if I'm torn if I want her back. She's with someone else. Regardless if you think, oh, this guy's not good for her, he's not going to do this. It's like you think you have the option. I don't see where the option's there. And then your behavior on top of it is woman repellent. It's needy. Because I probably wouldn't know what to do with all her baggage if we did get back together. In reality, I got out of this relationship and she's with someone else. She's someone else's problem now. She didn't really do anything wrong, as I broke up with her 14th of October and she started seeing someone 2.5 months later, even if it was only a week after she blocked me. Listen, there's no rules to like, oh, rebound. Oh, I can't believe she only took 2 months. If someone's attractive, number one, man or woman, all right? If they're attractive, if they're highly attractive, there's going to be less time before they meet someone else. Whether that works out or not, who knows? Okay? If they have their life put together, like attractions, especially for females, but for men too, they're going to be more likely to meet someone as a free agent. If they have everything lined up, like they have a good job, they take care of themselves, all these other things, they have a good social life, they're going to meet someone faster. All right. So the idea, like, I can't believe it's only been 2.5 months. You were with 7 casual women. I don't mind. It's just that you're not playing a fair game in your head. Everything's for you. The way I see this. I started getting upset. I started getting obsessed when there was competition, and it's pretty clear that their toxic rebound relationship probably won't last. That is absolutely not true. Men do this all the time. They go, oh, it's a toxic rebound relationship. You've never met the guy. Never met the guy. I don't care whether it is or it isn't. The relationship that you're creating post-breakup, pretty toxic. You're asking for pictures of the guy. You're assuming the worst. You said earlier that you wouldn't want to be with her anymore because she's negative. You've created a whole Disney story about this guy. It's like an animated make-believe story that has no wheels to it. If you were building a case in court, it would be thrown out. It's just a biased assumption. And I don't think it's serving you. She's attaching herself to the first guy who came along, but who knows, maybe it will last. Exactly. Who knows, maybe it'll last. She's attractive, but you've mentioned she's attractive multiple times. So that's your trade-off. Your number one reason that you stick in this is you're highly attracted to her. She's attractive, but just wait, she blows up in his face. I'm 6'1", looking good, lost 12 kilos over 5 months, hitting the gym, still sleeping with other women. I'm going no contact and moving forward, but I'm missing my crazy little, I won't say the name. Okay? Bottom line is, there's some guys that women too, but guys, I'm 6'1", I look good, I get a lot of women, and then some woman stands them up or doesn't want to talk to them again, and they can't handle it. You can't handle it, because what you need to prove is if you're that good looking, you're that much of a catch, and you know what? I believe you. No reason not to. Fine. I'm with you. Then prove it. Because right now, what you described as the anxious attachment, abandonment issue person, the person that's negative all the time, you're describing yourself on the bottom half of this story. You're spun. If you're that good looking and that good a catch, one girl has you spun that you're asking for pictures of the new guy she's with? Come on, man. Could you talk about the realities of taking back an ex who has been sleeping with a rebound longer term? I'm going to talk about the realities that you believe you have an option when it hasn't even appeared yet. So you're just assuming like, look, eventually you're going to break up and she's going to come back to me. Complete possibility. I'll tell you what, you'll probably be turned off because it sounds like you're just turned on by the chase here. So the realities of taking an ex, so you're like, how am I going to deal with taking her back or not? Your ego is so big on this. That's what's got to be checked at the door, dude. Could you talk about the realities of taking an ex who has been sleeping with a rebound longer term? It's totally up to you. A lot of guys have trouble with it. The fact that you're asking for a picture now, but the bottom line is you're gonna have to forgive that. You're gonna have to overcome it. You're gonna have to put your ego to the side and also come to the reality that you slept with other people too. If they have been together 6 months and sleeping together twice a week, then that's 52 times at a minimum. How could you continue with knowing that she's been doing this in the middle of your relationship, regardless of whether you've been seeing other people? It's an individually based thing. So if you ask me what I thought of that, or if, Harry, Rick, Cliff, John thought of that, it's going to be different for different people. The fact that you're putting numbers to it is strange. What I would say to you is if you're 6'1", looking good, hitting the gym, and you're, getting women, bet on yourself meeting someone else. You're building this case of how bad she is, how bad the situation is. And what do you want me to tell you? That, well, actually, you could probably forgive her. To me, even if you got back together, which is a possibility, you would be haunted by the fact that she's been hooking up with this other guy, and she'd play into that. She knows that gets you going. Like, she'll catpaw you all around. It's fun for her. If you guys went to a couples counselor, you'd be surprised. You're the one with just as much issues the way you're chasing this. You're the one that's more obsessive right now. I actually think it's disgusting taking back an ex who slept with another guy a lot. I think this topic that is overlooked on getting her back. That's a personal belief, and that's fine. If you say, hey, man, that's disgusting, I would never go back to an ex that's hooked up with another guy. I've never had it happen in my own walks of relationships. I've never been put in that situation. I certainly wouldn't want to be with an ex-girlfriend who I knew the guy she was sleeping with for a long time. No, that wouldn't be an ideal situation. If someone else wants to get back together after that and they've been hooking up with other people, I think it's doable for different people. The idea that you're entertaining this, I don't understand the scenario you're creating. So if that's how you feel, then this is my answer. I'm done. Stop doing all the detective work on who she's sleeping with and all her issues and all her problems, and bet on yourself meeting someone equal or higher value. That's the problem. You're obsessed with proving how wrong she is in what she's doing, when in reality, You're attached to her. Also, why do I want to see a picture of this guy so much, and why doesn't she just send me one for closure? You're not going to get closure from seeing this guy's picture. It is weird. A lot of ex-girlfriends wouldn't agree to that. So the idea that you think that that's somehow going to get you closure, you're not going to get closure from talking to her about this. Closure will come from you going, I'm done. I'm 6'1". I'm looking good. I'm hitting the gym. I can get women. I can meet someone else. This idea that you're the obsessed one. My female friends are saying he sounds not hot. Your female friend says he's not hot. Okay. Whatever. Like, I don't know what this would be called, but there should be a term for guys that obsess over their ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend or new guy they're seeing. Because this is a thing where it sounds like you don't even think that the way you're looking at things is a little bit weird. You got to let her go, man. You got to let her go. And like I said, ironically, some guys that do really good with women, I've had this before, and if they get rejected and they're not used to it, it eats them up. Actually, women are worse. If there's a really good-looking woman, and she gets rejected by a guy that's subpar to, her level, whatever that is, she will be highly attracted to that guy because she's so unused to rejection and challenge. And right now, you're being rejected and challenged, but your reaction is anti-attractive. It's actually obsessive, and like I said, you're losing her feelings for you, right? And you're being obsessed. I mean, that's all I could say about that. And the problem for you, there's probably something from your past that's involved here. And I would say, like, I'm not into attachment issues, but you're anxious attachment too. What I see in you, I see in me. Now, you might be looking at this and you're going, wow, man, you're really hard on me. It's not my intention. You give me a story like this, and this is what you need to hear because it's the truth. This isn't me trying to like spin like a good story on a YouTube channel and get you all worked up. This is really good that you wrote that out and heard a perspective that's objective, because your female friends are like, oh, he's probably not even hot. That's not helping you. That's not helping you. You ran away from this woman. You ran away from it because you saw all the red flags, and now you're becoming the crazy one. You got to go to therapy for yourself right now. And this idea, like you said, like, oh, I've been dating, I hooked up with 7 other women, all this stuff. Good for you. It reminds me of a client I had a while back. The guy was rich. He's a personal trainer. He worked for some big corporate company. He had multiple properties. Truth be told, I wouldn't say he's Brad Pitt, but he had a lot going for him. The woman broke up with him when they were on a ski trip in Switzerland because he had money. He had big money. So like he could go do things. And she was like, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. And he was like, what? They're in the middle of this Switzerland trip. And she's like, I just can't. And she just went down a list of reasons why she wasn't into him. She was like, I don't like that you let your dog sleep in the bedroom. I don't like that you smoke cigarettes. I don't like that you, she went on all this list. And he told me about it, right? And I'm like, well, sounds like you just liked her. And he was like in love with her. She was like a kindergarten teacher. She had a side business. Like she had her shit together. And she had a boyfriend prior to him that they had a lot of drama. And so he couldn't accept. He couldn't accept, you broke up with me? And I was like, and she told him Honestly. And this is what's happened right here. This girl, for how crazy she is, right? She told you, hey, if you prolong your trip and don't come back for Christmas and my birthday, I don't want to be with you. All right. I don't think that's a healthy way to negotiate, but whatever. Secondly, you broke up with her. She was single. Thirdly, when you came back, she told you the truth. I'm seeing someone else. We're not sleeping together. And you're like, wait, whoa. Let me ask you some questions about this guy. Let me see if he measures up to me. Bet on yourself. Right? If this person's that crazy, and here's a really interesting thing about closure. Oh, I just want to see this person's picture. Oh, they're probably this. Oh, they're probably that. I've seen guys for years that cling to that. I'm not suggesting you're going to do that. For years, there was a guy that used to come on the live stream regularly before, and he had his ex started seeing someone new, and he just constantly, the new guy was this, he was douche, he was that, he was this. She's with someone new. And you know what? I'm with you as a man. That's when you got to like sack up and be like, now that you're with someone else, I don't think I could ever be with you again. All right, fine. I mean, think about it like this. Would it help if it was, some movie star or someone famous, and then you'd think, oh, I'd feel better about it? Not really. I've known people like that too. I remember there was a friend of a friend. This was years back, and some of the people that watched the live stream probably heard me talk about this. The guy was a quarterback for a D1 football team. I won't say which team, but like he made the NFL. He was in the NFL. He's an NFL quarterback. I didn't know him directly, right? This isn't one of those things where I knew this guy. No. The guy was an NFL quarterback. He was a Division I quarterback. He was drafted like in the top 10. Millionaire, right? This friend of my friends, and when I say that, I knew the other friend. They were together for like 2 or 3 years, and this dude got girls. He was good with chicks. Like, women loved him, right? She cheated on him with this NFL quarterback and college quarterback, right? He knew about it. He was dusted for a couple years about that. It's not a lot of, that's tough competition, dude. Right? Wrong or right? He hooked up with her afterwards. Like, they got back together after he knew that. But every Sunday when that guy was playing quarterback, all his friends would give him shit about that and make a big joke about it. And it just hurt him. Now, if they ended up having kids and doing that, it's up to you what you forgive someone for. Morals and values are no longer shared by large swaths of cultures. It used to be that way. But now with the internet, people kind of pick and choose what they want to believe in morals and values. That's just how it is. So if you go around and you're like, oh, yeah, how could anyone go back to their ex-girlfriend after they've been with them? There's been plenty of them. Plenty of them. If that's not your thing, why would you sit around and want everyone to go, oh, yeah, I wouldn't do that either? How does that help you? Start moving forward and start with these words. I'm done. I'm done. Not, oh, let me see if I can get his picture. This guy's not going to be good. What? It's delirious. Don Preisler. Always like your advice, although I don't need it. Single and happy to stay that way. I don't have the will, motivation, or need to hook up, but be in a relationship. But yet sometimes I feel it is quite, unquote, wrong or unnatural, but it is what it is. Well, thanks, Donnie Preisler. Nice manicure? I don't have a manicure. Just cut my nails, man. Unless he wants to date himself. This is one of those things you get. You know what it is, too? If you're in a relationship where a woman puts you on a pedestal for a period of time, too, like 2 years, 3 years, she's always chasing you, she's always wanting you, and then the tables get turned, it's a shocker. It's a shocker. And that can happen. Looks like I got a pedicure. Even my bad finger, the one I split in half as a 3-year-old or 5-year-old. A simp is the term. I think, I don't know. I don't like using labels like that. You know, reading this whole story and being abrupt and honest and maybe a little bit abrasive about it. The reason you got to hear it that way is your perspective right now is highly biased and not a good look. So what I mean by that, like the idea that like, oh, when I get my chance to get back with it, one, you're disgusted, but you're also like, if we got back together, it's like, why are you hanging? Once someone starts dating someone else, it's curtains. I mean, you're going to fight for the relationship, or you're going to compete after you've been with someone for 3 years. Once they're with someone else, it stings, it hurts, it's upsetting. I'm with you. Write me your story. Let's do a coaching session. Let's talk about it. Getting into delirious talk where you make assumptions about the new person and about, having, when I have the option to get back with them, it's like they're with someone else. I once put a guy on a pedestal, then cut him so fast. Why? What does anxious attachment mean? I don't think I'm going to get into attachment theory today, but you can look it up. It's just one of those, people don't realize theories aren't facts. Man, I'll tell you what, it feels so good to have a clear, crisp mind again. Because when I had that dengue fever, I was scared. I mean, I was like, I don't know if I can do this again. It's cloudy. I couldn't even drive. Those guys that are hung up on their ex are currently talking to during their breakup. Who cares? No contact is the only way. I get it. I get the pain. I get being upset about it. And a lot of times that's what happens when you're in a quote unquote toxic relationship where you threaten to break up with someone 10 times and they want you back. Once the narrative changes and that strategy or pattern doesn't work, it's really hard to accept. It really is hard to accept that. So I get why you're going through that. And hopefully going through that story just gives you a new perspective, because you need to reshape the situation. Everything we look at is perspective, interpretation, perspective. So everyone hearing that story is like, oh wow, this is this is an easy one to call. Yeah, your feelings aren't involved. Ego is probably worse than feelings. I was obsessed with the idea I created of him, but he wasn't that. He was trash. Was a lesson I had to learn. Well, we'd love to hear about it, Rye Flint. Would you like to call in and tell us the details? Isn't it funny though? Like, I was just telling this client this week, he's going to be 23. And we've been working together a while. We started working on limited beliefs and some other things. I'll probably have him on the show again. And I was saying, like, he's just at a phase right now where he's finally like really kind of over his breakup. He had a really tough time because they were together 4 years, his first love and all that stuff. And I said, the good thing is, and this is what I believe, I don't know if it's true of everyone, but I would say your first really bad breakup, and your first bad breakup doesn't necessarily mean your first relationship. because the circumstances and the timing is what affects a bad breakup. It's not just a breakup. It's where you're at in life too, financially, camaraderie wise, all kinds of other things fall into place in that. What they said to you at the end, ... how shocking it was. No. Again and again and again and again. All these things are involved. Now, once you get through a really bad one, it's kind of like you build up an immunity to being that bad again, is the way I feel. You've proven to yourself that you can get through a breakup. You're not going to die. You know what I mean? It's not going to be as bad. And hopefully you've put yourself in a situation to not be with someone that really hurts you. Is it still possible? Absolutely. Absolutely. But the reality is you have a really bad breakup and you really go through it for a year like this guy did. And you work through it. It won't be as, you're going to have another breakup probably because that's just the way the odds are and stuff. It just won't be as bad or dramatic. It just won't be as bad. And that's just how life is. You learn from those kinds of things. Put them on a pedestal and then had to drop them like trash. Everyone needs to go through a bad breakup and toughen up. Your point of view, the relationship will also change for the better. All right. Let's see here. I do have one more story here. Hey, coach, I got a story to tell. I broke up with my ex about 2 years ago, and she came back into my life a month ago. It started with a text asking how I was doing, and then we had a 2-hour phone conversation. Then a few days later, we did a Zoom call, and on camera, she looked great. So I broke up with my ex 2 years ago. She came back into my life a month ago. It started with a text asking how I was doing. Then we had a 2-hour phone conversation. Then a few days later, we did a Zoom call, and on camera, she looked great. Almost sounds like an interview process here. We then went on to have a date, or actually we just said, let's meet up for lunch. We met for dinner the next day, had some drinks, and ended up back at her place for some fun. It was great. There was no talk over the original breakup, which was really hard on me and her. We were together 5 years, and she told me she just wasn't in love with me anymore, and that she started to have feelings for a guy at work, and she didn't want to cheat, but she admitted they had been going for lunch together at work, that things were escalating. I tried to work through it, but she said it was my fault, and that she said that it wasn't my fault, and she wanted to be single. How many times does that narrative come up? Again, this is one of those ones where you got to respect her for being honest. There's a lot of women that would have just I've talked to them before in coaching where they're like, yeah, I've been cheating. If he ever finds out, I'll tell the truth, but otherwise I'm not going to tell the truth. So it might really seem bad, but would you rather know the truth? She ended up moving in with this guy shortly after we broke up. I had heard from a good mutual friend. It really hurt me, but I appreciate her honesty. Since then, I've dated, and I've even had a woman that I was seeing for over a year, but deep down, the sparks were never there. And shortly after I broke it off, this ex called. Now, recently, I've been feeling good about this ex and our new relationship, but I can't help but think of what happened with that other guy. So yesterday morning, I asked as we were in bed together, bad move, and it was gnawing at me. She exploded and told me that that wasn't something she wanted to talk about, and that he was verbally abusive to her, and she deeply regrets it. All right, so in his particular case, I would say at some point he probably would want to ask about that. Probably not when they're in bed or right when they start to get back together. The fact that she exploded about it, it wasn't good. right? I just would say that maybe he could ask that at a different point in getting back together. Now that he knows, I wouldn't keep asking more questions. I told her maybe to seek therapy, and she stormed out of the room. Then came back to tell me to please leave and that maybe it isn't going to work if I'm going to be throwing old news in her face. I wasn't throwing any in her face. I just wanted to know what had happened. Did I do something wrong here? Well, I mean, it's a slippery slope because a lot of times guys do want to know. I think the timing of like after you just slept together, women can be a little sensitive after that moment. And for women, a lot of times it's shameful that it didn't work out with another guy and that they don't want to talk about having sex with another guy or that he was verbally abusive. Was it horrible that you asked? No. Like I said, the timing was a little off. It had to come up at some point. The fact that she's so traumatized by it isn't your fault. Now, how should I approach reestablishing contact with her as she hasn't called or texted since this? Well, if you guys hooked up and it was that good, I mean, the resurrection of the relationship was that good, that clean, that natural, just leave her alone for a little bit is what I would say. Don't call her up. Don't apologize. If anything, you could just say, hey, if you wanted to talk this week, let me know. Keep it extremely short. Keep the door open, but you don't need to apologize or make a bigger deal out of it. She probably needs some time to process how she acted. And then I would probably ask you, is that out of character for her to act that way? Or is that how she is? Does she explode? Right? I think your response, well, maybe you want to seek therapy. Just leave it alone. Don't make it a bigger issue right now. I have a intuition here that she probably will call you back because she called you in the first place and you guys had some good intimacy. You didn't overdo it. Had you asked more questions or exploded on her, that would be different. Let her process this for a little bit. Let her get the opportunity to be accountable for overreacting. And if she doesn't, then that's a problem she has to deal with. Brand new Skinner. I laugh about my past relationships nowadays. It's funny to know I acted, felt, and behaved in the ways I did. Better to laugh about it because really, in the end, it doesn't really matter. Not that I laugh at an ex in a demeaning way. Just choosing to laugh is good therapy. Laughing is good therapy. It is. Sometimes with clients in the middle of like a difficult moment or we're talking about, something really deep, sometimes I'll laugh and they'll be like this and then they'll laugh a little bit because it breaks your trance. You don't realize when you're in bad feelings, you're in a trance. You're stuck in like tunnel vision. And some things, I certainly wouldn't laugh in a group, like if it was group therapy, but one-on-one, especially on video, it's like, really? That happened? It changes perspective. It's never a good idea to bring up previous partners in bed. I mean, in this guy's particular situation where they broke up 2 years ago, she broke up with him. She ended up with a new guy. I could see him being curious about what happened. It's the timing of when you bring that up. The fact that she goes off on him and explodes, let her get some time, like I said, to kind of deflate that. She's also embarrassed probably a little bit. The grass isn't always greener on the other side, as people say sometimes. And that's why she came back. But it's like kind of ironic that this story came up after the other story where the guy was like, how can anyone ever go with someone that's an ex that's slept with another guy? It's just disgusting. And like, it's funny in the story previously, the guy's like, full disclosure, I've hooked up with 7 women since being with her. So random. She's using him. What is she using him for? Well, we could put you on deck for tomorrow. I can schedule you in for tomorrow, Rye Flint. but I already did one show before this because some of you guys weren't on the other one where I talked to a guy who's 20 and he's in a breakup or whatnot, and he just needs to. What's really interesting when someone says, "Oh, I'm insecure," or "I'm needy in my relationship," well, you're not going to change that in a day. That's something that's baked into your character, your personality, dude. Where did that come from? So, like, we were talking. I basically did like how I would talk in a session. We probably didn't get as detailed as we would have. But he just, had some issues where he was fat when he was a kid, kind of picked on, and he's just looking back at those things. He doesn't realize he's not the same person anymore. He's 20 years old now. He goes to the gym. He's changing things. So I don't know how Mary being a spectator to the show, right? When you hear me go have a live caller like that and you're listening to this guy talk, was that something you want to listen to? Because I don't know, because sometimes people, they fall off the viewpoints when I do a live call because it doesn't really protect. It's when you get into a live call, sometimes people get bored with listening to one person's problems for an hour. That's why I get paid $125 an hour, because it's like not everyone likes. You know how many times people have told me, like, how do you listen to people's problems? It's crazy. Sometimes during the live stream, when I do the live call, people are like, they just fall off the viewership. Isn't it interesting when you think about like Maury Povich or Jerry Springer, how they crafted, how they set up sharing like breakup stories to dramify them so much? When you really think about it, how they always, and they, Maury Povich or one of those, you'd always know who the bad guy was. There was never like an objective, neutral, hey, maybe this guy was played. Hey, no, man, we know. Like, they would always have the bad guy already done. Power is expensive right now. Homeboy fell for it. She was probably feeling lonely. That's messed up. Women got needs too. That is true. Guys underrate the fact that women have needs too. My mom painted a laughing Jesus, like relationships are at the end of them. It's all too serious. Whoever perceives Jesus laughing, yes, it's perspective. That's great, Donnie Preisler. I like that. A laughing Jesus. Why not? Jesus said to play as if you're children, right? Didn't we talk about Rob I.S. Telmac? We talked about this. What, the WWL's wrestling? It would be interesting if they had a dating app for people that were bitter that their partner ended up with someone new, and how much they hate the person new that that's one of those ones I don't relate well with, is that when you start getting into knowing a lot about who your ex is with now, man, that's just something you don't want details on. If you can't handle the truth. Oh no, Rob really rolled out today. That's a good point, Rob. Like, there's things of social media and different things like that. I bet a lot of people wouldn't know who their ex was with and the pictures and all the details. It's hands down the biggest problem for people. I mean, I've had clients that are like late 50s, live in a small town of like 1,800 people. I had a client like this earlier this year. It was like a fishing village on the East Coast. And she's like, everyone knows everyone. Everyone grew up here. And she broke up with the guy that she's known since she was a kid. He lives around the corner. There's only one bar in town, right? And she's like, I saw on Facebook that he was at this bar flirting with such and such woman, and I stormed in. It's like, wow, it just touches, like, social media just touches everyone when they're in a breakup. They just can't deal with it. She like showed up at the bar and found him there. So, Mac, tell us about your most failed relationships and what you did wrong. Give us the ugliest one. Huh. Man, I wouldn't say that, and I don't mean this in a way that I'm above failure. I just wouldn't say that if I'm going to talk about relationships that were girlfriends, right? That were long relationship girlfriends. I wouldn't say any of them were failed. Because overall, they were pretty good until you broke up or the problems occurred at the end. That's why it's really, when you look at relationships that are just bad overall, now there might be one of the relationships where I was like, if that was at a different time, we probably would have stayed together longer and we had a really good connection. But knowing what I know now, Donnie Preisler, I would say that you never do know. So like, even when I really don't believe that we do these assumptions like, oh, well, if I would have stayed with her, we would have had 2 kids and we would have had this, we would have had that. You automatically like drop the other dominoes as if that's how life's so clean. And the reality is life isn't that clean. If you would have made this decision, then this decision, then this, because it's always one more thing. And then something crazy happens in your life. Like 2 weeks ago, I got dengue fever and thought I was going to die with 104 fever for a week. Like stuff like that happens. You're like, where'd this come from? I'm healthy. I didn't go to the hospital because I'm like, I'm just going to beat this. It's the flu. I go in the hospital, like, you could have died, man. Right? My point is like, you don't, like, if you look back on your relationship, like, oh, that's where I failed the most. I would say in my experience as a coach, it seems that people feel that way the most from divorces where they had kids. That seems to be the deepest one for people, really. Right? Do you know what I'm saying? Like that, I wish I could have been a family with my kids. I never had kids. So that book isn't closed yet, but so I don't have that. So I wouldn't say my most failed, what you did wrong. And I don't feel like there's something that I did wrong in a past relationship where I'm like, oh man, I wish I could take that back. I look at it like, learned a lot from those relationships. They were pretty good. They were pretty good by what I know about other people's relationships now. And it's just good to have no regrets in that regard. So I'm grasping for it. So you ask a question like I'm grasping for it is did I have a really bad breakup? Hell yeah. I've talked about that many times, but that was all a perspective based on the fact I wasn't happy with some other areas in my life. And so when the breakup happened, it was just kerosene on the fire. And, you know, I don't like to look at life in the sense like that anything's regretful. It's got to be a lesson learned in those things. One thing I wish I would have learned earlier, probably in my 20s, like my early 20s, is I wish I would have got hypnotherapy, which I do now. I wish I would have got rid of some of my limited beliefs. I think that would have been like, there's a client I work with now that's in his early 20s, and it's like the work we've done to change some of the ways he looks at himself. And that's why I took that extra time with that client today in the live stream earlier. There's 20, because I'm not going to sit here and talk about my childhood. My dad was an alcoholic, and my parents there were some bad things that happened. Right. And I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with that and stuff like that. But I would have liked to get someone like a coach or a therapist, like what I do now, to work through some of my issues. Because I didn't, what I know now, Donnie Preisler, is that if you don't get out, like those limited beliefs, those stories that you have running through your head from when you were a kid of some interaction that happened to you when you were young, will set out decision making for the rest of your life if you don't get out in front of it. And there's a really simple format to it, Don. It's real. That's why I just started the process with that kid today. It's very simple. You just go through your life, you go 0 to 5, 1 to 10, and you're like, what are your traumatic moments? Everyone has them. I do this with clients now. And some people will be like, oh, my mom punched me in the face when I was 8. I was shocked. You go through all these moments and someone go, oh, like he said today, I didn't make the soccer team when I was in 6th grade. That was really, like, someone else will be like, what's the big deal? Highly traumatic for a 10-year-old to get rejected at that age. Now, if you get the proper therapy, or like I said, with hypnotherapy, where you go back to the moment, you reframe it, you can change that insecurity that was built when you were 10 or 11 years old. Now, think about that for a minute. You're like he's 20 years old. You guys could hear in his voice today if you heard him. And he was being vulnerable, right? He brings up a moment like that. It's still there, trapped in the moment it was when he was 11. Man, that was so hard on me. It's like, now you're 20 though. How can we bring that back up, put it in perspective? So now when you have the Rolodex, when you make decisions or you're dealing with problems, the Rolodex doesn't go, oh yeah, I remember when I played soccer when I was 11 and I was rejected and I was fat. The Rolodex goes, I ain't that kid anymore. I remember when I was 11 and I didn't make the team. I remember being so upset with myself. God, a lot has changed since then. Now I can bench 200 pounds, whatever. There's a client of mine came to me for a breakup, and this is where my work's changing. And I'm at a point now, it's we got to do this breakup thing, and I like dealing with breakups because it's a great crossroads for people. But this is where the deeper work is. Like, any of you out there that want to do some work outside of breakups, very good at what I do now. It's life-changing shit. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm not an infomercial. This ain't fucking Brad Browning. But when you get into that below surface level, and that's what I would say, Donnie Preisler, that if I could have had someone help me at like 2021 and just dig out the gatekeepers, is what I call them. What do I mean by that? The gatekeepers are these stories that you've had happen to you, or people that have ingrained narratives into you, right? That you don't even know are there, and they're dictating your insecurities and your limited beliefs. And they're different for different people. So now when you go to YouTube and all this stuff on YouTube, right? A lot of it's like, oh, you have traumatic events, you had a toxic lifestyle, like all these big generalizations. Really, your problems are these individual stories that actually fucking happened to you. They're not traumas. They're stories. They're events. They're moments. So, like, for example, I've talked about this once before. I don't know if I was talking about it on the live stream before. This client of mine, extremely successful, early 30s, lawyer, high up, like extremely successful education-wise, pretty good. He came to me originally for a breakup. We did some deeper work, and he had some insecurities. He had some deep insecurities about some things, about different things in his life. You wouldn't know it from what he's created in his life. He was a freshman in high school. He gulped when he told me the story. This guy's like 33. And someone punched him in the face, and he had an altercation over his Walkman. And when I say Walkman, I'm like, 'cause that's how long ago it was. And it was still trapped in his head because he had a black eye for a week. It was a traumatic event. It was hard for him to talk about. He had never divulged that or unpacked that with anyone. We just cleaned it up. We laughed about it. We talked about it. Now he could put it back on the shelf. There's no amnesia involved. It's just like, you know what? I would have kicked that guy's ass now. You know what? I was just 13 years old. I was embarrassed. I'm okay now. But when you leave that on the shelf the way it was when you were 13, you carry that shit. And then whenever you're in a situation like that, you get insecure. That's something I wish I would have learned younger. That's something I wish I would have cleaned up a long time ago. And this surprised me, like, because I'll be dead honest. In my 20s and my 30s, confident in some places, not confident in other places. Had some limited beliefs probably. Right? I know I had limited beliefs. And now I've reshaped those. Is my life perfect? Hell no. Hell no. But I can handle it better. But I'll tell you what, those stories from any story from when I was young or some kind of bad thing, I reframed those. I cleaned them up. You're storing them on the shelf of your mind in a way that's hurting you now. And that's deep. And it's fixable. It's like another client of mine, and I'm doing this work now more and more. This other client of mine, she had parents that were drug dealers, drug addicts, both, / really rough childhood. She had some really fucking harsh shit happen to her when she was young. She never went to a therapist or anything. She's 33 years old. She's also in her early 30s. Bad breakup. We dealt with her breakup, helped her with that. I said, hey, I want to do some deeper work with you, though. I think it's time for you. We went through all her problems. Hey, what happened when you were 0 to 5? Hey, what happened? It gives me chills, some of the things this woman been through. And she had it in her head. She deserved it. That was her narrative. That was her self-talk. Well, I deserved it. I deserved it. She was like 21. She got jumped defending a friend at a party. She was put in intensive care for 4 days. The friend she defended didn't even come to intensive care. She called her dad. Her dad said, oh, you deserve it. You put yourself in that situation. She carried that narrative, man. Gives me chills talking about it. We just flipped that. She sent me an email. I almost wanted to share it with the live stream. She's like, oh my God, for years I had it in my self-talk. Everything that bad happened to me, I deserve it. I deserve it. That was just from a moment that was really bad that she imprinted on other moments. Do you see what I'm saying? When you get into that and you start rearranging that, you start to feel lighter. You start to feel like, oh, I had all these gatekeepers holding me back. It's deep. And I gave you a little bit of a peek of that when I talked to that kid earlier, but we didn't get to the point where we rearranged those situations. Like he mentioned the soccer thing. I'd probably do some tapping with him. I'd talk about it. We'd rearrange that thought. So now that even though he got cut when he was on an 11-year-old soccer team, he doesn't look at it like you can literally, especially on camera, when you're talking to someone, you can see the emotion still there. They're like, when I was 11, like they're still 11. It's still in their lap, packed away like that. The minute it gets brought back up, it gets lessened. The minute you talk about it, the minute you laugh about it, Donnie Preisler, the minute you laugh about it, the minute we change a little bit of perspective, we talk about it a little bit more. That girl thought she deserved to get jumped in intensive care. Someone beat her head in with a beer bottle. She almost lost her life. She said she woke up. She didn't even know what happened. Right? And the friend you defended didn't even come to visit her in the hospital. And it was embarrassing. Did I erase that one? No, but we cleaned that up. Once you clean up those things, everyone should have a cleanup. You clean them up. Like I said, you start to feel lighter. Maybe don't go around saying you deserve bad things to happen to you. Self-talk's huge, man. It's huge. So that's where I'm starting to change. where I'm going with my coaching and hypnotherapy and things like that, because breakups is a great place to start, because a lot of times it puts you at ground zero and you're willing to work on yourself. So you end up going in that direction anyways. Because a lot of times people that, if you have enough money, you have enough food, let's just say you have a subpar relationship to okay to good relationship, why would you work on any of that stuff? It's not a problem right now. I don't blame you. It's not going to optimize you in your light. You need to go farther down before you want to go up. But once you clean up some of those old memories and you go through them, way better work, man. That's what I wish I would have done earlier in my life, because I had some things hold me back, for sure. But part of the journey. What is your proudest moment when looking back at your previous relationship in regards to you ending things with partners you were with? Proudest? See, that looks bad because I didn't say anything that was a failure. So I'm going to go, oh, this is what I'm most proud of. I would say that pretty much most of my relationships were good. I don't know how that sounds very simplistic, that we had a good time. We had good respect. I wouldn't characterize the relationships as toxic. I guess one of my proudest things is probably the fact that I've never been a jealous type. I've never been a overly insecure type in relationships. And that's probably because I've never seen my dad act that way. My dad wasn't perfect. He wasn't the best husband all the time. But I never witnessed insecurity or shame or like that. And so I was able to carry that over into my relationships. I'm not jealous or needy. And just, I look back on my relationships, like they were good. They were good relationships. I mean, they ended for different reasons. But I don't have any crazy, like, oh my God, it was so bad. The really bad breakup was just hard because that was the first girlfriend that I really loved. We lived together. We had a deep relationship, and that things just changed so quick. And to be honest, she became an alcoholic. So that wasn't something I'm like, I'm going to, oh yeah, this is all her problem. It's like, but I would say that, yeah, overall, like I don't have this, like, oh, I was with a narcissist or something like that. Mac, is that why term trauma bonding is used to people that were traumatized in the past, primarily with each other, because they're so-called traumatized mirrors helping each other heal? Donnie Preisler. I would say that I don't know enough or read enough about that term. So I don't want to, because people that are really in on, I'm not a textbook coach. Like I didn't read a bunch of textbooks. I read a lot. I read a lot. I've had my training in hypnotherapy. I've been doing coaching for 5 years. I've been a teacher for 11 or 12. So I'm not going to sit here and go, oh yeah, trauma bonding's this and this, because I don't know the exact terms. I haven't read a bunch of papers on it. Does that sound right? That two people, term trauma bonding is used to people that were traumatized in past, primarily with each other, because they are so-called traumatized mirrors helping each other to heal. That sounds like it makes sense. That being said, their individual traumas and what the triggers are attached to that and the narratives attached to that will be different. So this is where I always feel like you can read all this stuff and you can get up on it and you can learn a lot, right? But if those individuals that had these traumas aren't talking about their individual traumas, instead of if they start using terms like, oh, we're trauma bonding, we're traumatized mirror helping, when are you going to get to the below the surface of what the traumas were? And how can we start taking the traumas and redefining them? So what do I mean by that? Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, right? He calls it logos therapy. Logos means meaning, okay? What he's saying is whatever your problem is, and he was in the Holocaust, he was in one of the camps. That's what the book's about. You need to create a narrative that you can live with that'll make you stronger or better from the story. So it's like someone can be a victim from a story or a hero. It's like one of my clients right now has said he's never been better at studying in school because his ex-girlfriend told him he was stupid and he was never going to do well. So he's channeled that into, I'm going to show her, which is a positive. So if someone was in that situation where they're trauma bonding and someone has those terms, you're still going to have to get to the bottom. What were the traumas? And I feel like this is my own personal belief. Once you start using big words like trauma bond, maybe someone doesn't think that's a big word, narcissism, I think you add weight to the problem. If you were in a group of psychiatrists or therapists and that was their language. Okay, so I just saw this. I like Andrew Bustamante. He's a CIA agent. He was saying that the FBI, law enforcement, and CIA have different language when they assess things. So he said when we talk to each other, we know our language. A lot of this language like trauma bonding, narcissism, attachment theory, this used to just be language that was used amongst therapists, psychiatrists, and they really study this. Now that this is all available for the public, right? Because there's so many articles and YouTube videos with therapists and stuff, people are using this language as if they're therapists or psychiatrists, right? Now, here's the thing. The guy that from the CIA said, which is a great point, he goes, when people write articles, it doesn't translate well because they really don't know how to define the language. When people read about all this stuff and see all these therapists and psychiatrists, what the difference is, they know the terminology, they know the words, they know the definitions. They don't do the practice. Okay, so stay with me on this, right? Someone will say, well, you're not a licensed psychiatrist. You're not a licensed therapist. No, but I do the work. I talk to people about their problems. I talk to people about their breakups, about their issues. You see what I'm saying? I actually do I get results. Clients come back to me. They say, I'm feeling better. They say this made a difference. That's how I know I'm doing good work. Now, people that go and hang a license up, they might not do good work. They might be biased. I don't know. But then you have another sector of people that are spectators that have all this knowledge, all these articles that they read. Okay? Nothing bad about that. They don't do the work. Right? They don't counsel people. They don't do therapeutic work. They don't listen to someone for 2 hours or 3 hours that's a stranger and not their friend. What they do is they find all this information and then they fit it into their life. And then they go, oh, well, I don't like this person at work, so they're a narcissist. It's like, now, if a therapist was going to call someone a narcissist, right, they would have to meet with them first, probably for 2 hours, probably for multiple sessions. Now, someone at work's like, well, I work with them every day. I can tell. Yeah, but you're not going to know what the root of that is. So here's another part of the whole thing that comes full circle. Now, stay with me on this. This is what gets me about people. Oh, they're a narcissist. Oh, they have attachment, such and such issue. Oh, their mom abandoned them when they were young, right? You still don't know what it was like to be that person in that situation in that moment. Oh, they were abused when they were young. Have you ever heard someone say, oh yeah, they were abused? Cold, no feelings. Even though you know that about the person, if you were in a coaching session like myself, right, and you felt the raw emotion or feeling of someone telling their story, one-on-one, totally different level of compassion and understanding that you're building as a character. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense? That's why there's a client of mine right now. He reads all kinds of articles on different kinds of theories and different kinds of things. He's always trying to diagnose his girlfriend or himself. And it's like, you need to go talk to an outside person and stop grab bagging textbook articles and get involved in what your stories are or your traumas or your past. Because you're just going to fall under an umbrella. Some people never understand that reframing is an option that is available for healing. They simply aren't aware. So, great example, Rob IS. And I used to say the same thing, like as if it's so easy just to reframe everything. The problem is if it's a big enough the problem is there's different ways to do the reframe. So for example, Rob, there's a large swath of people now that being a victim has valor or attention. So if they were, for example, if they're, they're from a poor place, they grew up in a poor place, like we grew up in the gutter, we grew up in this, like rap music has a lot of that, right? It's like, it becomes a good thing. It becomes a badge of honor. So there's a secondary gain to the negativity or the trauma. So when you look at someone, like I've been around people now, like when you really start to listen to how people talk about their lives and themselves, they're running a pattern or a narrative, but they think that this is 100% true. And so what happens is it's, for example, this is a great example. Let's say someone gets in a car accident and they're pretty mucked up. They have multiple injuries. They want to sue and get some money, right? So the lawyer they go to is like, look, you better be in bed for this long. You better go to the doctors this long. You better miss this much work. Now they're going to create in their head that the injuries are worse than they are because there's a secondary gain. People like this can create back problems for the next 10 years. Why? Well, I need that back problem to validate me getting $1 million. Now, people do this with all kinds of stuff. You see what I'm saying? Like they create a narrative that's actually not good for them. And they have case stories of this where they'll talk to someone and they'll go, oh yeah, I'm building this case against so-and-so. And they're like, you better drop the case or you're going to lose your health. Because the mind is so powerful. So if someone had a story from when they were young that they've been telling for 20 years, sometimes they don't want to reframe it. They're like, no way, man. Right? So it gets pretty deep when you really get into it. It gets really deep as far as fixing your outlook on things. And I've just come across it the last year or two, and it's a different style of work that I'm doing now. And it's like, when you want to like clean up some of your issues and your limited beliefs and you want to book a session to do it, it's actually very rewarding on my end because it's long lasting. Breakups are different for different people. Some people, it's so interesting because some people, this is the other thing everyone doesn't realize. Someone can read a book, implement it, and have it change their lives. Someone else can read a book, tell everyone about it, and not implement it. Someone else can get a book, read 2 pages, leave it on the shelf because they don't have time. Like, so someone says, you need to read more books. Certain people get their information that way. Everyone's going to get information differently. That's why like Jocko Willink or ex-Navy SEAL is going to convey information and advice better to other Navy SEALs. But to Jocko Willink, he's like, well, everyone should be listening to my advice because it's good. But to someone that's maybe a librarian or someone, just on a different spectrum, they're not going to vibe. That's for a good coach or a therapist or whatever you're doing, you need to learn the individual person. This is why I always talk about tailored advice. Most of the advice out there is general and it has people spun. You got to sit down with someone and get deep about your stuff. And then once you do, you can shift it. And the interesting thing about once you shift it, it actually takes a little while. It's almost like if Sam Lujan had like a problem where she was like, some kind of issue that's like in the background. She doesn't know why she acts that way, but she doesn't study well. She can't get out of her own way. We just need to redirect the ship to go a different pattern and a different way. And then maybe in 3 or 4 months, you're like, oh shit, I've been studying more. I've been taking my tests better. I don't know what's different. That's when a real change happens. That's when something in the therapy that we talked about, in the coaching and the hypnosis or the tapping, something changed. And it was a outlook on something that you changed. And that's why when you have people use words like never, always, all men, all women, generalizations that they're assuming are true for everyone else, and they're locked in. And those actually can be changed. And a lot of times they're not good for you. Was turning 27 difficult for you, Mac? No, 27 was actually good. I was at a place, though, that deep down, I didn't know why I wasn't happy. But I had sounds dramatic. I always had a calling that I wanted to teach, that I wanted to be a teacher, or I wanted to do counseling or something like that. And I felt like when I was in real estate, that it was like, I wasn't a very spiritual person or anything at that time in my life, but there was just something that like I couldn't shake it. It just was at my door all the time to teach, to not be doing real estate, which I was pretty good at. And so that was bothering me. But right when I had my bad breakup was 28. So that was my most difficult year. And that's what they call Saturn's return. How you been, Justin Brown? Frederick Nietzsche, Amori, love your fate. Mac, you're good. I wouldn't listen to you if you weren't. We all want to think we're experts when we're not. Thanks, Don. I need life healing, not well. Rye Flint, book a session. I'll give you a refund if you don't find it useful or helpful. I don't know anyone else. I don't know. I'm sure there's other people that do that are coaches and therapists, but I've had other people that are business people are like, why do you do that? I'm like, who else does it? But we could start with, we don't need to get into your relationships, but if you got some like limited beliefs or some insecurities, I can get to the bottom of all that stuff with you. Like I said, it'll be a subtle shift, but it'll help you. Also, since you were talking about hypnotherapy, do you think that it is effective with someone who has dealt with sexual trauma? Absolutely. You're not going to, Sam, those kinds of things like a sexual trauma, you don't want to run from it. You don't want to run from it. I've had clients that I've talked to about that stuff. And a lot of the heaviness is from society, this shame. But it's actually happened to a lot more people than you think. It's shocking how many people. And then when you realize that other people it's happened to, there's just another frame to it. It's like if you, and I'm not saying you had sexual trauma, okay? Because maybe you're talking about a friend or something like that. But just the fact if someone meets someone else that's someone they respect or look up to and they had sexual trauma, it immediately deflates the balloon because they just realize, oh my God, I'm not crazy, or I didn't do anything. Like there's other people that this has happened to. And there's different flavors to that, right? But if you know it's there, hypnotherapy works really well in a variety of ways. what you're doing with hypnotherapy, just to get the essence of it, hon, is number one. A lot of people think that you like go under and you bark like a dog and all this other stuff. It's absolutely stupid. There's a lot of PhD, Stanford doctors, Harvard doctors that use it primarily in their practices, but they have the PhD. So it's thought of like, oh, hypnosis is kind of secondary. Actually, it's primarily used by a lot of them. What you're doing is you're just calming your mind, your emotions to focus on what it is you want to talk about. It's a very simple format. And all I'm doing in that space is holding space and being a calm individual that's there with you while you're talking about these things. It's not like I'm sitting there going, oh, bark like a dog or do this. It's taking down all the distractions in your mind, all the nervousness, and going into a topic and getting focused on it. And then being in a place where you can redirect some of that focus from where it was before. And so, like I don't know if Mary's still on. Mary's done it before. It'll help you. And the main thing is do it with someone like myself, because I think at this point you trust me. And it's not as dramatic as people think. It's just like guided meditation. It's just putting you in a very calm state, relaxed. You know exactly what you're doing and you're very comfortable. And when you're in that state, you can rearrange some of these beliefs or these issues or narratives much easier than when your guard is up. You don't realize when you're in a state, when you're awake and you're, looking at Instagram, or even when we're talking now, your mind's not as crystal clean, clear, calm. Being in a hypnotherapy session, I can get you into that state where you calm down and relax. It's almost like it's almost like that phase right before you fall asleep when you're really calm. And if someone's woken you up and you're like, oh, I thought I was asleep for 3 hours and it was 10 minutes. That's how it is. And your mind during that time is more malleable and more open to suggestion or your own suggestion of what's best for you. Right? This whole idea of these scary movies that do programming and all that stuff, way overdone. Thanks, Riflin. I'm going to start a Patreon or one of these things. And I think one of the extras I'll do for you guys is maybe show you a little bit more of Thailand, because people ask me that a lot. But would $10 a month or $5 a month? I got to look at the different things. My ex reached out after 8 months to troll me and tell me he's never felt the way he felt about me with anyone else. Also, how he would have treated me right eventually. My ex reached out after 8 months to troll me and tell me how he's never felt the way he felt about me with anyone else. How would that be trolling you? Wouldn't that be a positive? Osita? Also, how he would never have treated you right. Also, how he would have treated me right eventually. It sounds like he's not trolling you. It sounds like he regrets and misses you. See how the interpretation can be I mean, that's how I would read that. This has got to be the worst, because it's physical, emotional, spiritual, sexual trauma. People who do that are very disturbing to me. Well, what's interesting is once you do a variety of coaching and therapy with different people and different problems, it's less shocking and in turn less shameful. So this is what's really interesting. From the outside, when you don't do this work and you just watch movies, you're like, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. But if you start working with clients, one of the gifts that you can give a client when they're telling you something that's very deep or dark or a sexual trauma is not reacting in a shocking or disgusted or pity way. Just listening in a calm, cool way that it's okay what you're talking about. The minute someone goes, oh, that happened to you, judgment, guilt, shame just bleed right in. And most people are just not in that mindset when they listen. If you ever have a therapist or someone like that where you tell them something and they make you uncomfortable with their reaction or their body language as if they're judging you, get a different therapist or a coach. That should not be how you feel afterwards. You should feel like you're not being judged for whatever you bring up. He said he's with someone else and he doesn't want me, then says he's never felt the same way about anyone else. Then he didn't want me and then called me and texted me the next day. So it sounds like he doesn't know what he wants. Also, there could be the possibility of him drinking alcohol before these texts, which is very common, or drugs. You know, like if he's under the influence and you're like, oh, what's this? A client of mine just had this recently where the guy sent her, they hadn't talked for a month or something like that, maybe longer, 6 weeks. Sent her all these texts. How you are you with someone else? I've been thinking about you. This and that. This and that. This and that. And then at the end, he wrote, I think it was a few hours later. I'm sorry, I'd been drinking. I didn't mean any of that. Talking about how you would have treated me better eventually, and he recorded our convo. It was a jumble of rubbish, triangulation, admission. He still has feelings, but he's with someone 8 months. What do you want, real Osita? Do you want to get back with him? Well, I mean, what do you want? Was he, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good a boyfriend was he to you? On a scale of 1 to 10, what was your trust? What was your attraction? What was your connection? How good was he to you? I've had that many times before. Bad therapy. Sam, book a session. If you don't have the extra money right now, I'll let you do payments. I do that for other people. We can talk about it. We can have a consultation if you want. It doesn't have to be about your relationship. You've asked this a few times. I'll help you, hon. I'm sincere. My ex sent me a love song and says she loves me. Well, that's a positive, Justin Brown. Was a jumble of rubbish, triangulation, and emission. I don't even know what rubbish triangulation is. That's an interesting one. Got me there, hon. Eight months later, though, he said he's been watching me walk my dog. That's creepy. And I should wear stuff so he could see my bum. It was love at first sight. Then 6 months of hell. He recorded to show the new. I don't see where you say what you want. See, a lot of people do this. They go, oh, they did this. They want this. Oh, they called me. What do you want? Do you want to get back with them? If it's been 8 months, has it been a relief being away from that person? I mean, sometimes when you're away from someone, you kind of feel better. Like you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize how suffocating that was. You're welcome, Sam. Mac, by nature, and especially in today's world, we humans are very needy. Many confuse their wants with their needs. You really need to just be content wherever you're at in life. All right, Rye Flynn, thanks for the gym announcement. I don't know. I don't know about we humans are very needy by today's world standards. I don't know if I identify with that. I definitely feel like, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just digesting this a little bit. I definitely feel like there's a feeling of not having enough, which I guess some people would translate to neediness, because so much stuff's being thrown at you and advertisements and Instagram and the internet, feeling like you don't have enough. So I guess that could be translated to that. And that's a great point, because sometimes I tell people about needs. I go, you need water, sleep, food. Those are things you need. Some people might say love, but skip the recorded part telling me how he's never felt the same about anyone but me. I missed him. He clearly missed me. He wanted me to care. He needs mental help. He shoved white powder up his... Okay. Well, sounds like you're better off without him. Yeah, being content with wherever you're at in life. That is being at peace, being content, yeah. And really, that it's so ironic because there's so many shows and different content now. And I always think it's interesting, they'll get like Andrew Huberman, like Stanford PhD, who's got great things to talk about. And it's like, oh, let's talk about ways to combat, some tools to combat anxiety. And it's like, exercise. And it's like, this is so-and-so that's written 18 books and has, 18 degrees. And she goes, yeah, it starts with exercise. It's like, do we need to create all this content on the basics? It's like, what do you need to be content more in life? Now, I will say this. Things happen that you're not going to be content. I wasn't content when I had dengue fever for 2 weeks and I had 104 fever. No way. So there are going to be moments of that. But what do you really need to be content? I'd start with exercise, eating better, breathing better, laughing more, camaraderie, I guess. I would also say to be content, and this is kind of counterintuitive, is to be okay with being unhappy and saying it's just going to be a moment. Being okay with being in a bad mood for a day or an hour. Because I think what matriculates is when you fight things like that, then it gets worse. Good therapy tonight, Mac. I will soon book some sessions with you. I appreciate you, DP, Donnie Priceland. Right? I don't know why after 8 months, though. Why stalking me now if it was new? Whatever, he's nuts. Well, if you feel like he's stalking, you better put a police report, because that sounds a little creepy. I'm moving, he still wants, and he wants me to be upset he's dating someone. I'm happy he wants to be sad. I'm not. I don't care. Well, I hope you move to a place that's happy and good and clean and fun. And we're at 11 viewers right now. Really appreciate it. In the future, anyone that wants to drop. Wow, this has been good, guys. 2 hours. Did 2 hours earlier. Feels great being back on deck. Thank you, Don Preisler. Thank you, the real Osita. Royal Osita, if you want to send in your story to writemac.com and get my take, we can do that, or book a session. Rye Flint, Sam Lujan, looking forward to helping you guys unpack some things in the future, too. Mr. Justin Brown, always a pleasure. Rob IS is probably in bed. Mary's done for the night, I think. This has been good. I loved him, but he was a somatic narcissist, and I refused Nookie. Okay, I believe you. All the best. Take care, JB.